on the performance of Sindh on certain indicators. The second area was institutional strengthening, building institutions that can carry this SDG agenda forward. Third was the policy alignments with SDG of different departments in different sectors, and then awareness and innovation. So with the help of Bureau of Statistics, SDG unit has been able to establish data profile of all the targets of these different SDGs. Out of 200 plus targets, there are 179 approximately targets that affect provincial level governments. So we have mapped that, and we have also established baseline and have identified the ways to continuously report on those targets. We have established a framework as per the prioritization of Government of Sindh. Under that framework, the new schemes and new annual development plans are being formulated in Sindh. When we started our project, SDG data reporting was just on 33% of the total targets. Now it has doubled, and now we are able to report up to 61% of all the targets. Obviously, this is not enough. We need to reach to all 100% targets in order to be able to report to United Nations. But still, this is a journey, and we are taking that journey. This is pre-flood data, but before flood, we were able to record progress on 67% of SDGs. So there were indicators in education, in health, and water sanitation, which were showing performance. One reason was the baseline was quite low, but still the good news is that despite the fact that baseline was quite low, Government of Sindh has managed to achieve progress. Primary job, and that is budget making and oversight to executive arm of the government. They use SDG lens while doing that. So this is a very important political setup that we have been able to establish with the help of the Member of Parliaments of Sindh Assembly. Another high-level institution that has been created is under Chairman Planning and Development Department. So there is a high-powered forum where divisions, districts, and the provincial hierarchy is represented, which biannually reviews the progress on different SDG schemes and milestones. At the third level, at the department level, we have thematic committees where different sectors are represented by relevant departments. We call those committees thematic groups, and we have established 7 such thematic committees. So this is at this institutional level. At the policy level, we have been able to align different policies that Government of Sindh had promulgated over the period of time with SDGs framework. Sindh Vision 2025 and ADP analysis, this is an ongoing activity that we do for Government of Sindh to report how much the schemes are aligned with SDG targets. Sindh Poverty Reduction Strategy that was approved by the Cabinet, Sindh Cabinet, had a strong SDG presence in it. So in all departments, whether it is a agriculture department or health department or education department, we are helping these departments to align their policies with the SDGs agenda. In terms of partnership, we were able to form our first partnership with Third Foundation, We have intervened with the help of the Thar Foundation in Islam Court Taluka of Tharparkar, where active open pit mining is being taken place. Because of that mining process, there was displacement of population as well. So not just to provide them another location for their living, for their housing, we have also, with the help of Thar Foundation, been able to provide them new health and education facilities. All of that we did under the partnership that we did with Thar Foundation. Sindh probably is leading the charge on public-private partnership with the help of Asian Development Bank. Sindh government has established public-private partnership in finance department, which has undertaken major projects in the field of civil engineering as well as in social sectors, for example, health and education. In addition to that, Sindh Enterprise Development Fund has been established, which supports SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. Education and Literacy Department, as I mentioned earlier, the new education sector plan 2019 to 2024 is aligned with SDGs, and in addition to that, department has a dedicated SDG cell as well. We have an intervention in Azam Basti where we are giving an innovative idea to Government of Sindh for urban resilience and informal settlement. Recently, UNDP delegation visited that site as well, and then we had an international conference on urban resilience in IBA Karachi campus. We are also working with Directorate of Urban Policy and Strategic Planning in Government of Sindh to help them with the SDG 11. Another highlight is Finance Department's total mapping of the salary, non-salary, and development expenditure. So more than ₹1 trillion that are allocated in provincial budget are now being has been mapped under different SDGs. So we can know that how much investment is going for different SDGs. For example, as we were talking about yesterday as well, that for quality of education, more than 23% of the total budget is being allocated. So through this, Government of Sindh can measure their policy commitment against their investments, that how much, what is the priority they are pursuing, and how much investment is actually being allocated for that particular segment of the development. Data availability was one issue when we started our journey here. Still it is an issue. When we started this, only 33% of the targets were mapped where the data was available. Now it has doubled, but still we are short of full 100% achievement. So the Government of Sindh is committed for implementation of SDG agenda, that their commitment, if measured through their investment. So quality of education, more than ₹300 billion are being allocated for SDG 4, which is 23-24% of the total budget. In health sector, government again is investing ₹230 billion for improvement of good health, which is 19% of the total budget outlay. So through these investments, we are hoping. Okay. So through these investments, we are hoping that Sindh will remain on track. 2 years back, through different formulas, we measure the probability of Sindh achieving SDGs as per the localized targets. So that probability was 54%. But again, this was pre-flood calculation. So let's see how Sindh progress. So I end my presentation here. I just have a few minutes more. So there's a video. I would leave you with this video. So thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Eight years left to end poverty and hunger, to halve global emissions. It didn't start out as planned. We're not moving in the right direction. Years of progress lost in the pandemic. Escalating conflicts, climate breakdown. So where are we now? For decades, we successfully fought poverty. Now it's on the rise again. 1 out of 10 suffer from hunger, more people than ever forced out of their homes. Climate disasters increasing. Droughts alone estimated to displace 700 million people by 2030. This year, CO2 emissions hit a new record. At this rate, annual emissions will be 14% higher in 2030. Meanwhile, fossil energy receives $700 billion in subsidies from governments. Safe water and sanitation not made accessible fast enough. Progress must quadruple to cover all people by 2030. Women are held back at all levels. At this pace, by 2030, 825 million children won't have secondary level education. Human rights, health, and equality all hurt in the wake of war and disaster. Disrupted economies, food and energy crisis, and galloping costs of living damage global solidarity. Everything interconnected. Everyone intertwined. Business as usual won't cut it. Even though we made progress before, going back to pre-pandemic ways is not enough. We need a new paradigm built on the pillars of our 17 goals. Rethink conventions, flip the orthodoxies. Governments, organizations, corporations, citizens of the world, snap out of it. It's time for bold climate action. To act for women and girls, for social justice and inclusion. Scale up the transition to renewable energy. Create 85 million green jobs. Phase out fossil fuel subsidies and tax carbon. $2.8 trillion.
It's time for the presentation of sustainable gifts to our respected speakers of this session. Now I request Engineer Suhail Bashir, Chairman IP Karachi Center, to please come forward for the presentation of sustainable gifts to our speakers. Our sustainable gifts comprise of recycled bag prepared at NED from the wrappers of potato chips and a indoor plant with a pot of fly ash. I request Dr. Saad Qazi to please come forward and receive his gift. Now I request Mr. Naveed to please come forward and receive his sustainable gift. Thank you so much, sir. It's time for a 10 minutes break of Asr prayer, then we will gather here again for the closing ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem. Formally begin with the closing session of International Conference on Sustainable Engineering and Development ICSED 2022, we will now have a recitation from the Holy Quran.
لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Now I request Professor Dr. Abdul Jabbar Sanghi to please join us on the stage. I also request Engineer Asim Murtaza to please join us on the stage. I request Dr. Noman to please join us on the stage. Now I request Engineer Muhammad Abbas Sajid to please join us on the stage. I also request Dr. Ishrat Hussain to please join us on the stage. Now I request Engineer Suhail Bashir to please join us on the stage. I also request Dr. Saroj to please join us on the stage. So please have a seat. Now Engineer Muhammad Abbas Sajid, past President, ASHRAE Pakistan and Associate Conference Chair, will present the welcome address.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Respected Ishrat Hussain Sahab, former Governor, State Bank of Pakistan. Sarosh Hashmat Lodi Sahab, Vice Chancellor, NED University of Engineering and Technology. Suhail Bashir Sahab, Chairman, Institution of Engineers, Pakistan. Dr. Noman, Sustainable Chair. Dr. Sanghi, and Asim Murtaza Khan, President of the NED Association. A very warm welcome on behalf of NED, the Organizing Committee, and the Institution of Pakistan, Karachi Center. We have had 2 days of excellent discussions. Some very important points were touched upon. Some great presentations were made. And believe it or not, I didn't even know what area some companies were working on and some organizations and associations were working on. Even I was surprised with the workings of the government departments that were presented, and I was very, very happy to see that, some work is being done to achieve or at least come near to the sustainable goals that have been defined by the United Nations. I belong to a society which is called ASHRAE, which is the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating and Air Conditioning Engineers. And it's a 127 years old society of engineers. We are a global society. I'd like to welcome Mr. Murtaza Wahab, Administrator Karachi. So to start with, I would like to play a short video to let everyone know what ASHRAE is all about.
Surging crowds filling halls and meeting rooms, backpack-burdened members busily navigating crowded agendas and tight schedules. This ritual plays out year after year in city after city across the continent. They talk about the weather, they talk about buildings, they talk about the area. Typical small talk amongst busy professionals? Not quite. Not with these credentials. This is not merely a gathering of like-minded industry leaders. This is ASHRAE. With some members and get some insight into how ASHRAE works from the inside. How did you start in ASHRAE and what made you become a member?
I became an ASHRAE member when I was still in college at Kansas State University.
I needed certain information coming from the fundamentals and the books of ASHRAE.
I joined as a junior engineer for the handbooks. Then as I worked longer in the industry, I came to appreciate what a great resource society is.
ASHRAE is the society that defines the standards for our industry. It just doesn't make sense not to be a member.
ASHRAE is a professional organization, a career networking and information exchange. How has ASHRAE membership benefited your career?
Almost every job that I've had since my first job out of college has been through networking within the ASHRAE organization.
The connections I've made professionally have helped me in projects as well as personally helped me advance my career.
I've had opportunities to lead groups that I would not get in my normal day-to-day jobs, and it's helped me grow tremendously.
The people that I've met and information that I've learned, you can't replace.
ASHRAE is focused on heating, ventilating, air conditioning, and refrigerating. But what's something people should know about being an ASHRAE member?
ASHRAE really opens up the world of engineering for you and takes you beyond the boundaries of your working clients.
Having your voice heard as a member is really important, and they listen.
It's access to ASHRAE excellent resources.
ASHRAE is an organization of diverse and great leaders in the built environment industry.
What do you think is the best benefit of membership?
Hands down, resources. It doesn't matter what type of question I have or I encounter along the way, there's somewhere or someone within ASHRAE that can help me find the answers I need.
I think the ASHRAE Journal is by far the best thing that ASHRAE can provide you.
Anyone can get access to our codes and standards, but membership really allows you access to the great minds who wrote those standards.
ASHRAE is comprised of hundreds of local chapters, the heart of the organization. What benefits are there in being involved at the local level?
The local chapter is the closest connection to your current work. It's where all of your local allies are. You can learn to be peers with your competitors as well.
Being involved in the local chapter not only broadens your local network, but it gives you the opportunity to work closely with your local peers.
One of the biggest benefits of local chapter involvement is the opportunity to network with your colleagues.
What advice do you have for young engineers just starting out?
Well, you have to work hard, you have to constantly learn, but ultimately you have to do what you say you're going to do.
Wherever you go, you need to bring your notebook, bring a pen and paper, and write down notes, ask a lot of questions, just try to be a sponge.
First, join ASHRAE, and second, get involved.
Get involved and be confident. You may be new to the table, but with that, you bring something new to the table.
ASHRAE is a great organization on the forefront of technical innovation and driving the building sustainability movement because ASHRAE members demand action. They crave the interaction and sharing of ideas. They insist on developing the highest standards so that the industry never falls short of its responsibility. ASHRAE members believe in ASHRAE.
ASHRAE is a big part of the solution for the energy consumption problem around the world.
The green building standards that are being created today, ASHRAE is at the core of what's being done.
I really believe that ASHRAE is the place to be if you want a sustainable future.
We are the future of ASHRAE.
We are ASHRAE.
We are ASHRAE.
I'm the future of ASHRAE. You can be the future of ASHRAE.
ASHRAE is a global society. We have more than 50,000 members spread around 150 countries all around the world. And the headquarters of ASHRAE is in Atlanta, Georgia. We just moved into a brand new building, a net zero building in Atlanta. So everybody is invited. Whenever you're in the US, let us know and we'll be able to entertain you there. This year is very special to us because for the very first time in the 127 years of ASHRAE, a person from outside of North America and Europe has become the president of ASHRAE. And that is none other than our own Pakistani Mr. Farooq Mehboob. So that is a very, very big achievement for all of us. Farooq Saab is right now traveling to Belgrade. Otherwise, I had asked him to, speak to us, but he couldn't. He apologizes for that. Next time, inshallah. We are also part of the COP27 conference just held in Sharm el-Sheikh. And ASHRAE released a position document on building decarbonization and its role on mitigating the negative carbon impact of buildings on the environment. It presents the society's positions and recommendations for achieving a reduction in emissions through the renovation of existing building stock and improvements to new building designs. Building decarbonization encompasses a building's entire life cycle, including design, construction, operation, occupancy, and end of life. ASHRAE is leading the charge in accelerating the mitigation of carbon resulting from energy use in the built environment by providing this roadmap to further our society's mission of a healthy and sustainable built environment for all. ASHRAE's position is that decarbonization of buildings and its systems must be based on a holistic analysis, including healthy, safe, and comfortable environments, energy efficiency, environmental impacts, sustainability, operational security, and economics. By 2030, the global built environment must at least have its 2015 greenhouse gas emissions, whereby all new buildings are net zero GHG emissions in operation, widespread energy efficiency retrofit of existing assets, and embodied carbon of new construction is reduced by at least 40%. So ASHRAE has taken the lead itself and designed and constructed its headquarter building in Atlanta, US as a net zero building. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, our keynote speaker, Dr. Ishrat Hussain, former Governor, State Bank of Pakistan and former advisor to Prime Minister of Pakistan, will present his keynote speech. Please, sir, join the stage.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Vice Chancellor, Mr. Murtaza Wahab, my fellow panelists on the head table, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank NED Engineering University for providing me this opportunity to share my thoughts on a very important topic, which is not only local or national, but it is of global nature. And we will start with a sort of survey of what are the mega trends which are going to affect the globe in the next 10, 20 years, and how that is going to play back as far as the future of Pakistan's economy is concerned. because we cannot isolate ourselves from what is happening in the rest of the world. The global public goods and public disasters are common, and we have seen the pandemic, and we are now seeing the effect of the climate change. There are 6 major mega trends which are going to affect us, and some of us can actually benefit if we tailor-make our own policies in order to maximize the benefits from those particular trends. The first one is the demographic change. The advanced countries are facing an aging population. That means that Japan already has a decline of 0.7% every year. Korea is going to be in the same shape, and then Germany and Europe. While countries in South Asia and Africa are going to have younger population. So your horizon should not be limited only to your own countries, but your horizon should be extended as to how we can be part of the international global workforce. The second trend is the climate change. Now, we have been very much affected by it, and you all know how much damage. I'm not going to repeat that. I was in Sakhar and I was in Shikarpur, and I saw what devastation these floods have taken hold of. And there is now a great deal of receptivity, and this was at Sharm el-Sheikh, that we have gone for loss and damage fund. But we can't wait for that. We have to prepare ourselves, particularly in the 3 areas which are going to affect us: water, energy, and food. All the evidence shows that the glacier melting, as well as the extreme weather events, would affect our yields per acre. They will also affect the flooding and droughts, and they will also affect our energy and renewable energy through the hydroelectric. So we have to prepare ourselves in order to overcome these 3 major constraints we are facing. And I think the topic of this conference on the what I call as the built area or the urbanization, that's the third trend, which is going to be a major factor. I personally do not believe that the census of 2017 has revealed the real face of urbanization. If I travel from Lahore to Rawalpindi on GT Road, this is a whole concrete jungle of buildings and shops and others, and this is all urbanization, and a lot of agricultural land which is being transformed in, housing societies, in shopping malls and others. So the evidence, I would say, is that at least 50% of Pakistan today is urbanized or peri-urban areas, and we have to think about the future where in next 10 years we would have a majority of the people living in urban areas. Therefore, the built-up area, right from the design of the buildings, both commercial, residential, and infrastructure in the urban areas, have to be rethought, as 40% of the carbon dioxide emissions are coming in from this particular operation and the usage of these buildings. The fourth trend is the global change in the balance of power. United States used to be I would say, the monopoly power holder after 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union, but is now being challenged by China. China has already got itself as the world's largest exporting nation, and it's going to be in 2 years or 3 years' time, I'm quite sure, going to overtake the United States as the world's largest economy. It has got technologically very advanced. It is the factory of the world, and that's why there's unease and discomfort in the United States that it may be losing its edge. And therefore, this balance of power of geopolitical nature will have repercussions on Pakistan also. And then we have what I call as a powerful instrument which can make a huge difference as far as our lives are concerned, and that is the technological advances led by the revolution on the ICT. And there, the good news is that people used to think that if you are increasing your living standards or your GDP, you are also increasing the emissions of the carbon dioxide. The recent study shows that 33 countries in the world with a population of 1 billion have not only reduced the carbon dioxide emissions, but have also grown quite rapidly. Therefore, this decoupling of the GDP, which is standard of living, and the carbon dioxide emissions is a good news for developing countries like us. Because everybody was arguing that if we want to catch up with the living standard of the West, we would have more carbon dioxide emissions, and therefore, let us try to suppress our growth rates. What are the repercussions of that? You have youthful population, you won't have any jobs for them, you would remain poor country, while the Western countries have already emitted the carbon dioxide, created this problem for us, and they are asking us to remain backward. So this particular evidence, I think, is extremely important, and we should try to make people aware that there's no trade-off between the carbon dioxide emissions and the standards of living, and therefore we should invest in our people, invest in our infrastructure, in our economies in order to raise the living standards of our population. We will have 350 million people in 2050, ladies and gentlemen. You have to think about how are we going to feed them, how we are going to clothe them, how are we going to provide them shelter. And there, institutions like NED University can play a critical role in trying to lay down the roadmap on the basis of hard empirical studies and evidence. Conferences are very good, and I attend every year, I don't know how many conferences in Pakistan, from Sakhar, Quetta, Gwadar, Gilgit, I can't name you, but conferences are very good. But the real work, Saroj Saab, has to be done by your researchers to lay down from the initial stages to the next 20 years how these challenges we are facing can be taken care of. I have started preaching very extensively all over Pakistan, and I've written in newspaper a series of articles that the world today, to take advantage of the technological advances, has to prepare your students from the school level in science, technology, engineering, creative arts, and mathematics. This rote memorization and the selective study from the course and reproducing them in the exam is suicidal. I repeat the word, suicidal for the future generation of this country, because we are in the 21st century, which is a knowledge economy. It is how you're able to absorb, assimilate, and apply that knowledge to the real world problems. That is what the advantage of the technological. And there, universities like NED, which is a premier institution in my eyes, can play the leadership role in trying to lay down the foundations at the school level, because I don't think we have the competence anywhere else except the universities. So there should be a partnership, and this will be your corporate social responsibility that you owe to the society. So you take a few schools around your campus and try to experiment this. And I can assure you that if you have imaginative designs and the pedagogical tools, you would make mathematics and science learning very attractive. I went to the Dawood Science Museum, and I saw the young kids being very comfortable in solving the problems because they were feeling and they were experimenting. And this is how you take out all the fear from their minds. So my request is that perhaps NED University can take a lead in providing this, what I call as the intellectual infrastructure for propagating these schools. And then you can multiply them and the government will come in. And I have argued that today, if you are increasing the government budget from 2% of GDP to 4%, it is going to go waste. But if you increase the budget and introduce the computer labs, the networks, the connectivity, hardware, and give them these kind of lessons right from the